That would be the theme of my life. Alleluia. Alleluia. Thank you, Jody, Mike, Aaron, Ray. That was gorgeous. So gorgeous. And thank you, board and community, for your love. It takes a village to raise a child. Now, that's an often quoted African proverb, and what it means is that the responsibility of who tends to the child is everyone. That every child feels the presence of all the adults in the entire community around them to lift them up, to raise them, to teach them from right from wrong, to correct them, to encourage them, to love them, scold them, to love them, hold them. And likewise, in this situation, it takes a village to groom a minister. And you think I'm joking, but I'm not. This was my village as I was born. This was a photo taken at my mother and father's wedding reception. It was in the church basement. Someone forgot to tell them to smile. And yet, with these looks of, behind each look is a very sweet person. I was blessed to grow up in a family of very, very sweet people. And that influenced my life greatly. They were also opinionated, and sometimes the opinions weren't exactly agreed upon, but nonetheless, they were very sweet people. And as a child, I had a fascination of rituals. And yet I grew up in a fundamentalist church, and there really were no rituals except for songs and offering and a message and an altar call. Of course, the altar call, and that's where people came forward and claimed Christ in their lives. They accepted Jesus in their lives. And of course, I had that experience, and it was very beautiful and very powerful. But it had some limitations, not so much the experience, but the church. Because, let's face it, I was different. Now, I have said often that as a child and as a young person, I excelled at underachievement. And this is my training ground. I love to sleep and take naps, and still do. That hasn't changed. But as a child, I realized that I was probably different. And most children grow up at some point thinking they're different. They're not quite sure how, but it took me several years to realize that my difference was I was gay, and there really wasn't a word for it at the time. And that was the limitation. And so I found myself sidestepping life because I was just trying to hide who I was and to not get in the way, so to speak. And there came a time in my life when I left the church. David Carr asked me if I had a friend who said, "That's just not a good look for you." I didn't, David. I thought I was grooving. I left the church because I felt there was something inside of me that wasn't being met, and the church was rejecting me. Although they were still loving and kind, but still what they basically said was, "Robert, you're going to hell because of how you are, who you are." And so I thought, well, if I'm going there, I might as well go out and have a good time. And so I did. And I've learned in life that in order to get someplace, we have to step forward. And each of us knows that time in our lives when we're stepping forward to something. And I spent most of my life stepping sideways And like all of you, stepping back sometimes. Sometimes we do take back steps. Sometimes we have challenges that come up in our lives. And those challenges they're our gifts. They are our teachers. They're there to show us that how we're living isn't so much the best for us. They're not really, that way of living really isn't serving our highest good. It isn't serving our purpose. And I had a lifetime of sidestepping because I felt at a very young age that I was called to ministry. But how could I possibly go into ministry and be a Christian and be gay? It just didn't come together. And then I discovered unity. Pretty amazing. I had a very short and brief exercise with unity in my early 20s in Cincinnati, Ohio. And unity, the information that unity shared, scared me so much because it was different. It was radically different. It told me that God was love and only love. It told me that God was knowledge, all knowledge. And it told me that I am a reflection of that love. I'm a creation of that love. And that how I am created is perfect. It also told me I had a human side to me that gets in the way. And that human side is full of ego, and it's full of all kinds of things that says, Robert, you're not enough. And it says to each one of you, you're not enough. But boy, did it open my eyes. Oh. And then I met this man. This was my first partner, Harold. And I've talked about him before, Mr. Christmas. Harold was actually a former minister himself. And Harold had a very unique outlook on life. Harold was about love. He was about acknowledging the good around him. And that was new for me because I was going through a really radical time in my life where I was really acknowledging the differences in life. I was pointing out who was different and why I was better. That was my MO. Harold wasn't about that. And I was determined that I was going to change him, and that didn't happen. He remained that way until his death, because Harold and I had a unique experience is that we both found out that we had AIDS at the same time. Now, it manifested very fast in Harold, and he died before he ever had an opportunity to take the medications that might have helped. And although I shunned them at first because they were really awful, and I had no desire to stay alive and be sick, at some point I took them, and there was a miraculous happening that happened. And it was at the same time that I discovered unity again in Honolulu in 1993. There was something really wonderful about going through the experience of losing someone I loved very much who's making their transition and stepping into this world of unity that reminded me once again that God is all love and that I'm a reflection. I'm a product of that all love, and that I determine the course my life takes through my thoughts and my actions and my words and my feelings. Because I, probably like all of you, grew up with that information that evil was outside there and it was coming towards you. The devil was after you. The devil was after you. Unity taught me differently. Unity taught me that the devil is something I'm creating in my mind. And boy, that mind is really active and very creative. And boy, there were days I was certain the devil was coming after me. Coming back to unity and rediscovering truth was a step forward. I remember I attended a candlelight service, Christmas Eve candlelight service, and they had a scripture attached to every candle, and each scripture was different, and this was mine. And boy, did I need this message, because it says, "Very truly I tell you, the ones who believe in me will also do the works that I do. In fact, will do greater works than these, because I am going to the Father." I needed to hear that. I needed to know that there were miracles out there. I needed to know that I had the destiny of my life. AIDS did not have the destiny of my life. I had that destiny. A remarkable thing happened in that. In my healing process, and I want to tell you, at that time, I was dying, physically dying. I spent 85% of my time in bed. I spent that time a lot in prayer, but I had no energy. I needed help walking. I had to wear diapers. It was the whole thing. I saw holes in the sky. This world did not seem real to me anymore. I was checking out. But in this process, I found such incredible peace because I was constantly praying. I held my Father in my heart at all times. I did not have room for judgment. I did not have room anymore to not be forgiving. I went and did a life review and started forgiving everybody that had been in my life for everything, including and especially myself. There was a lot of forgiving that had to be done here, because even though I grew up in a very sweet family, there was a lot of anger there, and I had to deal with that. So the law of mind action, thoughts held in mind produce after their kind, that is what I worked with. I love this one too. Argue for your limitations, and sure enough, they're yours. So in this process, while I was somewhat sidestepping the whole thought of ministry, I was actually taking steps forward because I was holding on to my faith. I discovered a part about myself that I had never known before, a strength that I did not know existed, and I relied upon that. And then Friday night I moved here with the intention of I was going to retire. And I walk in the door, and sweet Paula Corvette meets me at the door, and she's so friendly and loving, and she brings me in here and introduces me to everybody. And I'm a shy person. I know it doesn't seem that way, but I'm a really shy person. And that group of women loved on me, and I came back. And I kept coming back, and you were very loving, and I sat over in the corner, and I was really quiet because I was determined not to get involved in this church. I was determined not to fall in love with you, and that didn't happen. And then Reverend Brian came, and I took one look at him, and I said, oh, this poor homely man, he is going to need some help. And then I also observed him, and I thought, heck, if he can be a minister, I can be a minister. And every week, Reverend Brian gave me a special little pep talk about either becoming a licensed Unity teacher or a minister. And it was the same pep talk. And I realized after a time that he had forgotten that he'd given it to me before, because he's like that sometimes. He'll share some information with you, and he forgets he shares, so he comes up to you like it's brand new to him, and he's sharing it with you. And then one day he calls me, and this was after our wedding and after I was far too gone in love with you folks. And he calls me up and he said, hey, I just remembered, there's a school in Detroit. It's called the Urban School, and it's really a great school. It's all online. You do all your classes online, and you just go to Detroit twice a year for licensing and ordination, interviews and to give presentations. And I've already called the director of the school, and she's expecting your call. And then he says, but I'm not pushing you. This is your decision. So I called. And I was going to keep this very quiet, and I think I've shared this with you before. Wasn't going to say anything for about a year or so, but the very first Sunday that I started classes, Reverend Brian introduces the idea that I'm in school, and I'm going to become a minister. And there was no backing out. There was no way. And all along the way, you were loving me. And then I thought, how am I going to do this financially? And I didn't think to ask. And then one Sunday, Brian's introducing a scholarship for the other school, and he said, oh, and Robert too. And I'm thinking, yeah, Robert too, because I have some tuition that is due, and I don't have the money for it. I don't even know how I'm going to get it. And you just poured in. You were handing me checks. You did a fundraiser. You did a prayer breakfast in my honor to raise funds. Our thrift boutique gave me all their profits for 2.5 years. You loved me so dearly through this process. I also remember during that time, many of you might remember Franklin and Deborah, who lived on the streets, and they attended for a while. I'm happy to say they live in Little Italy right now in a very nice apartment. Franklin came up to me and put $10 in my pocket. Now, my first inclination was, oh, no, you need this more than I do. But I realized in that moment that we all want to participate. This wasn't about me. It wasn't about me anymore. It was about us. I was just a representative of you. And whatever love you were giving me and whatever attention and support you were giving me, you were giving to yourself. And I so appreciated that. And I knew I had to do a good job. And there were a couple classes that I was just praying that I was going to pass because I really, for whatever reasons, weren't meshing with them. I was just praying, please let me pass this because I need to tell these people I'm going on. I'm graduating on time. I'm going to be ordained on time. And it all worked out. So I just want to tell you a quick thing about Unity Urban Ministerial School out of Detroit. It was designed for the African Americans in the Unity movement. And why is that? Unity is all loving, all accepting, and Unity had some issues. Unity was basically a whites-only organization for many years. And when African Americans came to the campus, they had their own bathroom. And when African Americans attended school, they couldn't live on campus. And they finally, students rebelled. We had a wonderful woman in our movement, Johnny Coleman. Johnny Coleman was attending university, attending seminary, and the students walked out. They said, no more. Johnny's living on our campus. Because Johnny had to live across town. Johnny had to go to another building to go to the bathroom. These are just things that it's hard for us to imagine, but it happened. And in our healing, we're going forward. And the urban school understood that they had a special mission, and that mission was and is to speak to people in urban areas, because there are special circumstances in urban areas that folks in the suburbs just never get to experience deeply. So my study focused not only on Bible and on church administration and counseling, it dealt with prison ministry, working with homelessness, working with people in the sex industry. It asks us to go out to those places that aren't so popular. The mission statement for the urban school is Isaiah 61:1. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. He has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners. And when I read that, I say, y'all don't look so oppressed. I know some of you are brokenhearted, but y'all don't look like captives or prisoners. And yet, when I looked at that closer, I realized that the oppressed is the folks who feel weakened, people who are aging and feel forgotten, people who may be going through a disease, and the brokenheartedness, the appearance of loss that happens all the time in our lives. And the captives, we're held captives by our humanness, by our limitations and how we're trying to break free of that. And to be released, the prisoners, the prison of our old beliefs. And this is what we're doing together as a community. And this is my charge as being your pastor, is to help break through that and to allow each one of you to shine through in your own and special, glorious way. And so this was my crew at graduation. My beloved members of my family, my husband Friday, who's back there and who's very shy. That's why I'm not bringing him forward and embarrassing him. My mother Pat and my sister Sandy. These are the people who lift me up, and Friday especially every day lifts me up, takes care of things that I should be taking care of myself. But God love him. He knows this is how he can support me, and he does. And this is my message to you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Thank you. You are a blessing in my life. God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, and let's stay connected and grow in spirit. We are on Facebook. Search for Unity Church of El Cajon and follow us and like our posts. You can reach us on YouTube at Unity Church of El Cajon. Please subscribe to our channel, watch our videos, and leave comments which can help us improve. We are on the web at unityofelcajon.org. Email or call our church office to receive our weekly newsletters, which lists all of our activities and opportunities to learn and grow together.